Hi everyone, Mistany Fitztano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new Flying Lotus album, Flamagra. This is the long-awaited sixth album from legendary producer Steven Ellison, aka Flying Lotus. A lot of anticipation for this one, for me, mostly because I've been enjoying Flying Lotus's music for a long time. Since the days of Los Angeles, which is over 10 years old at this point, and that's very weird to think of, so I'll stop that now. Ellison's music not only revitalized, but recontextualized and reinvented the dynamics of instrumental hip-hop. He was vital in the popularization and inception of the wonky genre, and in a very short period of time founded a groundbreaking label, Brainfeeder Records, and inspired an entire generation of left-field producers and rappers. It's also pretty amazing that he's been able to evolve so boldly from one record to the next. The trailblazing Los Angeles, which saw Ellison crafting this hypnotic, awe-inspiring lo-fi hip-hop way before anybody was anime studying to it. The progressive and otherworldly Cosmogramma, considered by most of his fans to be his master work. You have the subtle and moonlit Until the Quiet Comes, which in his discography contrasts very well with the incredibly explosive, bold, and kaleidoscopic You're Dead. So where does a man who's always turning up somewhere new go next? That's a hard question to answer, especially considering the crop of singles and teaser tracks from this record. We have an eerie spoken word cut featuring David Lynch, songs that have Anderson .Paak as well as Denzel Curry on them, where FlyLo can be heard doing his best to sort of put his own spin on an instrumental that really complements their respective styles. There's also the matter of surprise appearances from Tierra Whack as well as Shabazz Palaces. And of course some of the usual suspects turn up on this record too, like Thundercat. So again, pretty hyped for this thing, especially since it's Ellison's longest album yet. It's an hour and 7 minutes, which is spread amongst 27 tracks. And now that I have heard it, and I am ready to review it, I have to say, it's Flying Lotus's weakest album yet. No! It hurts to say. It burns the tongue. It's like bleach in my mouth. I think the easiest way to explain my feelings is that this record completely fails on nearly every front that Flying Lotus's previous albums succeed on. Are we handed a cohesive, seamless set of tracks that reinforce each other's creativity with a central focus or theme or flow? No, absolutely not. This thing is loaded and just packed with so many random ideas and fillers and detours that there's really no rhyme or reason to much of any of it. It's like sitting through a bunch of arbitrary load screens where I'm just waiting for something of substance or significance or interest to pop up. Compare the dodgy, inconsistent progression of this album with the non-stop thrill ride of You're Dead, and you will hear a night and day difference. Even Los Angeles and When the Quiet Comes, while these records may not have exciting progressions across the entire track list, they do have focus. They are immersive. Listening to them transports you to another place because these albums have a sense of place, whereas this new album just really has no true identity. So if Flying Lotus doesn't do that on this record, does he at least present us with a new idea, direction, something groundbreaking? I would have to say no to that too. This album mostly feels like a hodgepodge of ideas that he's already explored on previous efforts, with a few unexpected experiments and features thrown in that are pretty hit or miss. I mean, you do have the surreal and twisted genius of Fire Is Coming with David Lynch. The tale told on that track is actually kind of cool. And then you have Pygmy, which sounds okay. It's a vibe, it's a motif, but not much else. It's kind of like a bit of a beat jam, a beat chill out inspired by a Jungle Sounds relaxation tape. Say Something, surprisingly enough, is a 3/4 piano and string piece that sounds straight out of the Eastern Bloc. It's kind of enchanting, kind of elegant, and not at all congruent with literally anything on the album. The most annoying and tedious thing I've heard in a while definitely goes to Yellow Belly featuring Tierra Whack. And it's not even Tierra Whack's somewhat repetitive and absurd performance on the song that ruins it. If anything, it's one of the few appealing things about it. No, it's It's actually the rickety-ass instrumental that sounds like something any Bandcamp producer could pull together in about an hour. Which brings me to my next question. Is Flying Lotus even living up on this album to the quality standards that he set for himself on every record up until this point? Am I consistently impressed on this album with the sound play, the sound craft, the beat assembly? No, not really, not at all. You know, it's not the case with every single song on here because the quality and the style of these tracks is so varied and so unpredictable, but some of the mixes on this album are god-awful. Layers of instrumentation that just blob together hideously, making it difficult to decipher exactly what's going on. The worst offender on this front is easily the intro to Anderson .Paak's More. Then there are tracks on this thing where Flying Lotus uses way too much reverb. And look, on his previous efforts, Flying Lotus is no stranger to reverb. He uses it. But I've never heard him use it to the degree that like a bad indie band that can't write a song does. I would say the tracks where he's most guilty of this tend to be the cuts that have some lead vocals front and center. Debbie is Depressed, Spontaneous featuring Little Dragon, the George Clinton cut. The reverb also feels like it's doing double duty on these tracks too, trying to cover up how horrid some of the singing is. Also, 9 Carats with Toro y Moi. It's difficult to even make out what he's doing vocally because, again, so much reverb. The vocals and the overall sound of the track are just hollowed out. There's also the matter of some of the instrumentals here not bringing that strong of a groove, or packing in sounds that feel really flat and basic and cheap, like the track Heroes in a Half Shell or the very goofy Pilgrim Side-Eye. And given his previous output, some of the beats on this thing just feel completely beneath Ellison. The FF4 instrumental literally sounds like a generic lo-fi hip-hop anime study beat instrumental on a YouTube channel. And look, there's nothing wrong with that sound, there's nothing wrong with that style, but does FlyLo put his own spin on it or anything? No, I mean, it's just like a 1-minute throwaway that should have been left on the cutting room floor. It just seems like literally anything is just making it onto this record. I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some beautiful highlights on this thing. It's nothing new for Ellison and it's pretty low-key, but the track Post-Requisite is a smooth, groovy, wonky rager with intergalactic sparkly lead melodies, sputtering drums, jazzy synth chords. It's great. The track Remind You features this very winding and starry and harmonious jazz progression that could have fit somewhere in the Cosmogramma track list. There are some mind-expanding string arrangements in the second leg of Land of Honey featuring Solange, and the climb featuring Thundercat is great as well, even if it is a little guilty of an overuse of reverb. It is one of the more solid tunes on the record here, and it could easily go toe-to-toe with any number of highlights from Thundercat's past couple of albums. There's also a very touching but short instrumental tribute to Mac Miller on this thing too toward the end. So there are some very good tracks here, but with a lot of them being as short as they are, their impressions are not that large. And none of them really get a chance to reinforce each other because they're all surrounded with these supremely mediocre cuts. It's very sad to say, but this album does not present the inexplicable rush of beauty, the incomparable attention to detail, or the mind-expanding explorations in sound that Flying Lotus is known for. I'm feeling a light 5 on this thing. Tran. Zishin, have you given this album a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like. Please subscribe and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, Flying Lotus, forever.